Welcome to Your Digital Reputation. Here's your host, Roger Christie.
Hello and thanks for joining us. My name's Roger Christie, founder of social media advisory firm Propel and host of the Your Digital Reputation podcast, where we talk to industry leaders about how they get social media right in the moments that matter most, to shape conversations, build trust, and lead with purpose. Today's guest is doing all three. Mary Delahunty is CEO of ASFA, the Association of Superannuation Funds in Australia, and the voice of super. What I find most interesting about Mary is how literally she's embraced that remit, using both her voice and face in a way that would likely terrify most other leaders, particularly in a sector known more for compliance and caution than creativity and connection. But while most leaders still choose to stay silent or delegate their digital presence to comms teams, Mary's chosen to show up personally and directly, filming unscripted videos, using her own words and a series of artistically crafted hand-drawn visuals, which I'm sure we'll get to in this chat. Mary's story is a lesson in what it means to lead in our digital world, why trust is built not just by what you say and how you say it, and what you stand to gain by simply being yourself online. Complete with weekend activewear. Mary, thank you so much for joining me on the Your Digital Reputation podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the shout out to the activewear. It's not at all embarrassing.
Not at all. I'm sure not. And we won't talk about it again
not at all.
on the conversation today. And Mary, maybe if we could start for those, particularly those outside the sector, could you just give us an overview of your role in the remit of ASFA?
So ASFA is the peak association across all superannuation funds and the ecosystem of super, because there's lots of organisations that actually contribute to the doing of superannuation in Australia. So it's a big remit that we have. As the voice of super, we have an oversight and I guess a mandate to drive policy and advocacy in superannuation to make sure that the changes being made are made for the good of the end member and that they're practical. We also run education for the superannuation sector, and we have as our members superannuation funds, organisations, and then the people who work in those areas as well. So it's kind of a broad area that we cover. And
I mentioned that in the intro that you've chosen a path, given that remit, given the broad audiences, given that, you've chosen a pathway that I particularly find interesting because it's one that's rarely travelled by the vast majority of CEOs and executives more broadly, particularly in conservative industries or regulated industries. But you're out there in front of the camera on LinkedIn, sharing your unscripted thoughts and ideas. What prompted you to pick up the camera or the phone and do that in the first place? What was the catalyst?
Anyone who's worked with me will attest to the fact that I cannot stay away from a whiteboard. Like if there's a whiteboard in a meeting room, I've got a texter. And I think I'm just a visual learner. And so it feels quite natural for me to be doing that. What prompted me to do it the first time was a particularly, I suppose, misunderstood calculation that was kind of being played out in the public arena of superannuation that I thought if I was standing in a meeting room, I would literally do this on a whiteboard. In fact, at home in the office by myself, I do things on the whiteboard. So it feels natural to turn the camera on. I sound very young when I say I am very young. Oh, that doesn't work. I'm being filmed. That sounds very, what my children would say, like constantly creating content, but it doesn't feel like a different me to turn the camera on and do that on a whiteboard.
Which I find really interesting in and of itself because even though, as you're saying, it feels comfortable, it feels natural, but you haven't always videoed and provided that in a video format on LinkedIn. So obviously at some point there was a decision that went, this is who I am, this is how I feel comfortable thought processing and presenting in an offline environment. Why then the decision to bring that approach online? What was that? What was the moment or the conversation that you had perhaps as a team?
I thought to myself that this is a particular calculation. It's not a tax component. Like it doesn't get more detailed and I guess somewhat boring than that in super, but it was being sort of widely misunderstood. So my thinking was, and I said to the team, how about I just video this? We write things down all the time. We explain things all the time at ASFA. We explain things in super. It's part of our role. But what if you just did that on a whiteboard and we just do it on LinkedIn? I'd like to pretend there was a lot of strategy that went into that and a lot more thought. But of course, the marketing and communications team have a look at the end result, and we checked it for compliance because sometimes my math can be a little off. But it's fine, it's right. And then I think it's just about being a little bit brave and thinking, what's the downside? The calculation's right. It's exactly how I would talk. I might not do it in like a t-shirt and jeans or whatever I was in that time in polite company, but it's right. So yeah, we just gave it a go.
But I think that's important. I think that message of it wasn't a heavily planned strategy. It sounds like the format was very natural. The dress was natural. Do you know what? It feels like what I'm hearing through all of that is it was just natural. It was something that came natural to you. It wasn't forced. It wasn't over-engineered. And so that makes sense as the most logical way to communicate what might be a complicated topic.
And interestingly, it was really well received. And I think that's when we decided, well, this is a method of communication. We've got a strategy at ASFA about communication broadly, obviously. We've got a brand strategy, we've got a comms strategy. And key to that is about the CEO, doesn't matter if it's me or whoever may follow, being well, I guess, recognised and having a personality and something to say. So having an identity is a part of the tactics within that broader strategy. We didn't ever imagine let's do some LinkedIn videos then, with a whiteboard and activewear on, but it is sort of, it fits that. So the strategic thought was didn't ground itself in that tactic, but the tactic matches the strategy.
At any point, did you have a conversation about dressing some of those things up and like having wonderful cameras and lighting and things like that? Or did you just naturally go, no, let's give this a crack as it is?
Yeah, we like the lo-fi. And that's a conversation we've had internally. I do also lo-fi emails because I feel like they are a point of difference and they get read because they look different. So we can get overloaded, no doubt, in any sector. I only know super really, so I know that we can get overloaded in super, in funds management and in operations with pretty glossy content. Either that's, on your social channels or straight into your inbox. So I really do want to be different and I don't want to be prolific. So I want my members to know that when I email them or when I talk to them about something, that it is worthwhile, that they read it or that they listen.
And I'm interested in the connection between the lo-fi nature of what you're saying and the outcome being that they listen, they pay attention because they know it's you.
Yeah.
So there's a deliberate, again, using that word strategy, there's a deliberate thinking there around why you would do it that way as opposed to the rest of the world and that kind of more manufactured, more polished approach. Yet what I find really interesting, Mary, is the fact that the vast majority of people find safety and comfort in that much more polished versus lo-fi version.
Yeah.
So maybe to give people who might be thinking or coming from that perspective some encouragement, you said that it was really well received. What sort of response did you get? The first time you stood there and you did it and you drew on the whiteboard, what happened?
We were, I think the marketing team was watching I can't remember what the analytics are called on LinkedIn, but it'd be the interactions or so. I mean, for a start, you see a lot of comments, a lot of sharing and things like that. Could be the topic as well, could be the method, you're never really sure, but it had for a potentially dull topic, and literally it was maths, and I had to use a part of the whiteboard that my daughter wasn't using, for her maths homework and stuff. So it was maths very simple compared to her special homework. But I think what we saw was, like, surprisingly, this had many tens of thousands of views, and ordinarily ASFA's content on LinkedIn wouldn't have that high a reach. So then you start to think, well, that's because it looks different. People kind of want to know who I am, I suppose, and because I was new-ish to the role. And so there could be a bit of that. But as it's gone on, we don't produce them timeline. Like it's not an every week or something like that. So that's deliberate. We want to just pop it up and have it well received when there's something good to say. And so we've given it more thought now that we understand, the receipt, and we understand the audience, and we can see the comments, and we love the comments. Like you love interaction. It's supposed to be a conversation. So I've got to be approachable. I don't want to sit there well lit. I do want to sit there well lit. Let's face it, some of those videos I look back on. But anyway, I'd love to sit there well lit, but that's not what it's about. It's about being approachable, having a conversation about subject matters that ordinarily you wouldn't converse about.
I love that. What's hidden in there is, it's about the message, not the messenger. So as much as we would love well lit and all this sort of stuff, good audio, all these things do make a difference. But at the same time, if you can deliver it in a natural way and that leads to the best outcome, then all power to you. You're breaking down, I would suggest, you're breaking down a lot of the barriers that people would inherently find uncomfortable. And whether it was intentional, whether it was strategic, that is the reality. So people do like the polish, they like the cameras, they like the scripting, they like the pre-planning, they like the proper attire. COVID broke that down for us as well. And there was a real shift, because suddenly we didn't have the production studio. Suddenly we didn't have the assets and resources that we were commonly used to in the, suites or whatever we had at our disposal in the executive team. And so when we're all forced back into our homes, the very best you've got is, a fancy smartphone or a webcam or something like that day in, day out. So the other thing that you're breaking down is the schedule, the content calendar, the plan scripted side of things. Again, people find comfort in that. What am I talking about today? I need to know what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Yet I'm guessing part of that is the reality is you don't necessarily know. No. What are the things that are relevant for my members today? Let's talk to that because they want to hear it today. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. You need to. It looks, because it is quite ad hoc. So is the subject matter, and it can be. I can think about the things that come up in the day and think I should do a whiteboard on that. And sometimes people ask me to do that. They have started to ask me to cover certain subjects from within the membership base on one of the whiteboard things. And sometimes they do it in humour and sometimes they do it for real. So yeah, it's taken a life of its own in terms of content as well. But we need to hold dear to it's not scheduled, it's not scripted, it's not well produced. It's my iPhone pretty much with some blue tack. And I try and stand near a window
to get the natural light.
That's it.
Sparing no expense with the blue tack.
Yeah,
I
think your producer's about to have a heart attack.
Again, I'll reinforce that. It's about the message, not the messenger.
Yeah.
No, I do love that. And within that context, when you first started out, like whether it's that example or whether it's others that followed, were there any fears? Did you ever think, well, what happens if I put this video up and people hate the whiteboard? Like, was there anything?
No, it's for a start, it's LinkedIn. It's got a different personality than other social media platforms. You'd know this better than me, but it's not really about hating as well. So if I was doing a makeup tutorial and putting it on, what else is there? Instagram. That would be pretty scary, right? But it's maths on LinkedIn, so it's not going to attract a whole lot of derision, I wouldn't think. So there's not a lot of fear there. The fear is, do I have my information wrong? And sometimes I can, in a couple, or maybe one that I recall, I had an old sort of legislative thing in my head because I do try not to script these things. So, and someone just pointed it out to me in the comments, which is fantastic. So you're just able to say, thanks, good catch. Like nobody really expects this really high, bar when you're standing there with your iPhone blue tacked to the back of a cupboard door.
Nobody expects perfection, but what's interesting is that we do. And I think that's the barrier that holds a lot of people back. It's interesting you say that example because I've had a conversation on this podcast with a fellow called James Dapperchi who works in law and runs a firm called Graviman. And I remember him sharing a story about the time that someone picked out in some, deeply buried law or whatever it was, regulation, and reminded him of that in the comments. And again, you can take that in two ways. You can be like, thanks, did you need to nitpick on it? Or at the same time, it's a learning opportunity and something that you will never get wrong again because you got it in the comments and you got it in the feedback. And I love that as much as you have a natural approach to delivering a message, it sounds like there's a very natural approach to listening to feedback as well and absorbing that regardless of what channel it's coming through, i.e. the comments in LinkedIn. So
yeah, maybe. I think that's a benefit of being in the profession that I'm in, though, not because if I was giving legal advice, if I was entering anywhere near financial advice, there's things like that where you want to be really a lot more precise. And I do like to get my material right, but it is not going to, there's not going to be the parading through the streets about if it's wrong in some way. So, yeah, I guess that we just have to live with some of those.
Absolutely. And I'm interested if I can probe a little bit deeper into the structure and the setup behind your videos. What I found really interesting.
This is going to be a short bit of conversation.
The layers of complexity that sit behind it. I am really interested to know. No, because you mentioned something earlier that it might have been a passing comment and people listening may not think too much about it. But you did say that you as the CEO of ASFA today and that someone else will ultimately take that role and remit in the future. And someone held that role and remit previously. So what I'm interested is, do you see your own LinkedIn activity as your own, as Mary's, and as an ambassador for ASFA and your members? Or do you see it that you are your own identity and part of that is ASFA, but part of it isn't? How do you manage that? Because again, I suppose what I see as a consumer of your content is Mary reposting ASFA. So as an almost that ambassador, that kind of flag bearer for the association. So yeah, how do you interpret that?
I think as the CEO of an organisation, when the organisation's remit is the voice of super, you are 100% the ambassador for the organisation. And the LinkedIn activity that is, or social activity that is me as the CEO of that organisation is actually the organisation. And so I guess where you're getting at is why is the video not on my site and then reposted as? Because it's ASFA's know-how, it's ASFA's research, and it's therefore I think ASFA's property, what I do with that. And I've got a decent, a decent following on LinkedIn. No, I've got that's a winner. I've got a decent following on LinkedIn. Fine, from a previous, from lives gone by. They've all been largely in the superannuation sector, so it's quite related. But this is an opportunity to merge the personality of that and the organisation, and I think everything is the organisation. That's my personal opinion. So to bring life instead to the ASFA content means that that's the first post. I have actually been asked by LinkedIn to do it the other way around. They contacted me about being a influential person in activewear doing math. It's a very niche category. I think I'm going to win it. But it is more important to me that it is the ASFA brand that shines through this and that it is additive to ASFA. We're a member organisation. We're a non-profit, and it is the members that own this. They own the IP. They own, I'm not bigger than the brand. The brand is the biggest. So it's got to be that way around for me.
It's a really interesting dynamic, and you're obviously not the first leader to have this kind of tension around, well, which way should we do it? And I remember back in the day talking to leaders, and in an environment like Twitter or X, for example, so much easier. Yeah. Because they could say, POTUS is the brilliant example, President of the United States. You can have a profile that is dedicated to the position of authority, and whoever is in that seat at that time can talk through it. The challenge with LinkedIn, of course, is that it's your profile versus the company page. And these are essentially two different entities. And, based on what you're saying there with that LinkedIn experience, you've got this tension between you as an ambassador and as a representative of, in this case, your members, almost pitted against the way the platform works and the way that you're going to get greatest exposure. And so I completely respect that tension. What will be interesting to see as time unfolds, how people respond to you, Mary, and your content versus how people respond to ASFA and the same videos, if you get what I mean, being posted on the company page channel. Because there is, based on the algorithm, there is obvious value in having an individual leading the conversation and the company page backing up and supporting them. But I completely understand your perspective. So it's an interesting tension that I'm sure other leaders are grappling with, because it really, at the end of the day, comes down to what you see your role being and what you see your responsibility being.
I can talk differently on my profile. So my language use is different, the typing form, the written form, than the ASFA profile as well. I think, it is an interesting, I don't know if it's tension, but in a non-tense sort of way of tension. But it's it's certainly helped to drive traffic to the ASFA site, helps to grow our members there, and that helps to deliver the purpose of the organisation. And as a CEO, I'm in charge of the purpose of the organisation. So, it feels right to me.
I couldn't, for example, and for those who are listening who may not have come across your profile before, I can't imagine ASFA saying, "I'm very excited" in caps lock on
no, that might be a little
post.
more.
That might be more you than ASFA.
Yeah, it might be a little more.
But what I love about that is then, what have you found in terms of the way that people respond to that? Because as you say, it's you. You're not, there's no facade, there's no bravado. As you said, maybe we should have better lighting or better dress or whatever it is, but it's just real. Do you find then that the response you get from people is equally real? Do they relate to you in a more honest and authentic way because of the way you put yourself out there? And then does that also translate or transfer over to ASFA as well? Do you find that as an organisation, people find you more approachable because of the example you're setting?
Yeah. It's hard without the the baseline, like what the counterfactual is there, but it's certainly part of the appeal of doing these videos to maybe make that the organisation more approachable. But I suspect to our members, we always have been. The reason why at the outset I described the different layers of members is because our members are both the corporate, the organisation, so the super fund itself, the administrator, the insurer. Our members are also the people who work there. And this is a conversation to the people who work there. And the broader super sector and anyone else who's interested in some of these topics. But our remit is pretty clearly within super. It's for the super sector, by the super sector. So I assume in the way I talk, a pretty high level of knowledge already about super. We explain parts of it in the video that might be topical at the time, but not, there's this much going from your wages into super. It's not a consumer voice. So approachability is about the people within super, the members already feeling like we are their organisation and feeling like we get their sector and their work and we get their need to uplift in some parts of their work. So it's quite a targeted audience, even though that audience is around, 30,000 or probably more people.
I really like that though, because again, you've talked about the fact that this isn't an intentional strategy, but there's thought that's gone into the fact that this is an approachable approach because we want to be seen as being approachable. And we want people to be able to raise questions and ask things and have that dialogue. So it fits again with that strategy, whatever it might be, the label on the tin. And you've talked about the maths example that we've chatted about already, the Div 296 example. I said I wouldn't talk about the activewear post. I lied. I want to,
sure, let's do it. Yeah.
I want to talk about it, and I don't have a whiteboard here today. I'm really sorry.
And I don't have activewear on, so I think it's
just for those who aren't watching.
Yeah,
I'm wearing mine.
Yeah,
it looks great. It's a bit cold actually for activewear. I'm interested to know the context behind that particular. Like, can you take us back there into that?
I can't remember what that post is actually about, like what that video was about, but I can remember that I just could not be bothered changing out of my yoga gear. So these are literally done usually of a weekend, at couples, sometimes in the office if I can, carve out some time. And so that's what I am wearing if I've been to yoga. It's as simple as that. And I'm not that self-conscious, I suppose. So that felt like the right thing to do for me. I think I started it by being like, it's a weekend, exercise here. We're going to do some maths of a weekend kind of thing. So I don't know. That's what a lot of people I hang out with are wearing of a weekend. I could run off and change, but then what do you put on? Like, I don't know. It feels too contrived if you make changes like that.
No, again, I love it. I think the honesty of it, the authenticity of it is really important. And I'm guessing, again, I can imagine a scenario where you've had this idea, it's like bing, the light bulb's gone on and you've gone, where's my whiteboard? I've got to go.
I better go and do this now. Yeah. Quick.
Set up the smartphone
the sun's
and away
out.
we go.
Yeah.
Exactly. The window's looking good.
Yeah, the window's out. Yeah.
Heaven forbid it's a rainy day.
Yeah.
But you get up there and again, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the message that you're trying to get across to people and the story and the narrative of what it is that you're trying to convey. So again, I can see that playing out. You're a marketer's dream, by the way, Mary, because I'm sure someone in your team is going whiteboard weekends or something. We're going to do whiteboard weekends with Mary.
Yeah.
It writes itself.
Doesn't it?
So does it well?
Doesn't it?
So you did that particular post. You did it in what you were wearing. You got it out there. And I should also ask, are these generally one-take things? Like, again, assuming
if I have to do it more than like once or twice, I'm so over it by that. Yeah, absolutely. And you see, because sometimes I have to like rub stuff out and go again in the thing. But if it doesn't go over time, I'm just going to let that happen.
Which is great. And again, it's part of the whole, the shtick of the whole experience.
Well, I can pretend that's tactical, but it's my laziness. Like, it's just start again when you think, I just did that math. Yeah.
It's too hard. I'm not a math person, by the way, so appreciate you doing that on my behalf. What happened in that particular video? What happened in the moments and the days afterwards? Because as you say, you've just come to the table, you've come to the whiteboard, you've done that, and you've just got the piece up there. Do people respond and they're like, how real? How great? Or are they just talking purely about the message? What is it that
a bit of both. I wish I could remember what that one was about. I presume it was maths. Explaining something, but a bit of both. But a lot of very funny either comments or text messages from people about the loving of the yoga gear, which they found, pretty amusing. It is a way to get, not that I look that good in yoga gear, but it is a way to get eyeballs back on it if the format's starting to get stale or, that people might feel like they've seen it all before, then, showing up in workout gear and reminding people that you're just sort of doing it on the weekend is a way to get them to look at things again. And so, yes, I did have quite a lot of texts from a few different people, including people within that big lovely building in Canberra about how funny that was. I think the audience is pretty wide. I thought, there you go. Next time I'll show up in something, I don't know.
What have you wearing at the time?
What else can we do?
Not in winter. But again, it reinforces the approachability.
Yeah,
so if the message here is about approachability, what that does is it takes away the facade, it takes away the veneer, and it just says, I'm here, I'm talking to you, you can talk to me. And I imagine, again, just based on experience with other leaders here, I imagine that as you do that, inherently it makes you more approachable to people offline as well. So while they're more comfortable to come and talk to you, they're going to obviously come and have a laugh about the activewear thing. They're going to say, how was yoga on the weekend? You have a natural conversation starter that you wouldn't if it was always corporate attire, dry, no whiteboard. People wouldn't know necessarily what to approach you on other than the subject matter you're talking about.
I do love that. I love when people come up to me at conferences and things and talk about like the whiteboard and talk about that. I like it when they introduce that. I had no idea that sort of thing would happen, but it is it's sort of quirky, but it's again, if it's about the reach into the members, then they know that they feel like you're talking to them, and they come and talk to me about that, and I really like that. That's just great. I've grown up in super, so it's been, I was a child clearly when I started, and it is a really friendly sector, collaborative by nature, and it's possible because, we're all told by our friends how boring our subject matter is that we've got to kind of band together, but it's it is. It's an incredibly important sector, and it's one that people work in for a long, long time. I could joke about it being Hotel California. Like, you can check out, you can never really leave, because once you know it and understand the complexity of it, and once you know the people in it, you tend to want to stay. It's a great and happy home in super. So to be able to make sure that people know, who are our members, that I am them, and, you know, ASFA is them. We are the sector. That's really important to me.
I love that. And I think, you know, from someone who's sitting outside the sector, we've had multiple guests from superannuation on this podcast already, and we don't have representation of every industry sector. But the likes of Christina Hobbs and Renee Anderson, who I know you know, and I would argue the exact same thing, that there's a real interest and passion for the sector and the impact of the work that it does.
Yes.
And people should feel proud and comfortable to talk about it. And so I love that is the case through some of the, you know, the people that I've had the privilege to chat to.
Yes.
So if we zoom back out for a moment, so we've talked about maths, we've talked about the whiteboard, we've talked about the activewear. If you think about the approach that you've taken, and am I right? It's been around 12 months or so since you first started this kind of, you know, more intentional.
Has been, yeah.
How has that approach shaped the way that people interact with you offline? So would you say that both within the team, within the kind of two distinct audiences that you have as part of that membership group, how has it changed the way people interact with you? Or have you noticed a change?
Oh, definitely. So people are they're friendly anyway, right? But I think that they feel like they've gotten a way to talk to me, which I want. I want engagement with our members, and I want to know what they're doing in their lives. And, you know, I'm genuinely interested in what super is up to, and that's our job as well. So people approach you, they talk to you about the whiteboard. You know, they will make jokes about it. I'll be introduced as the whiteboard girl. There's been a whiteboard placed on stage before, as we've been talking. Someone spoofed it once. I'm fairly sure it was intentional. He is. It's yes. I won't say who, but we all know within super who that was, and he's fairly widely known to our sector. So there's been a bit of like whiteboard, what would we say?
Sabotage.
Yeah, maybe sabotage, but copying, but in a good way. Like, happy to see more whiteboards. There's been a lot more interaction than you could possibly imagine from just picking up a pen and sort of doing what you would do in a meeting room.
I love that. And I mean, whiteboard's not a small prop though, to be fair. So
no,
it could have been a notepad or something. Might have been easier
easily. Yeah, you can't carry it around. Can't put it in your pocket. It's not easy.
But what I love about this, again, what is it? I'm laughing as I talk to you and hear you relate these stories.
It's pretty
funny. It just drops the guard. And so we come into this online environment and we think, what am I going to say that is going to be taken really seriously by the audiences that I want to see it, and is going to lead them to think differently about me, who I am, and my organization. Now, that's not a wrong intent, but the way you're executing that is so natural and real. It creates a level of connection, affinity, warmth, and ultimately trust and credibility that can't possibly be generated by a dry, sterile, formal approach. It just can't.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm comfortable with it. It's not for everyone, and it might not be, you know, it might be something that is not right for the next person in my role too. So I don't know, I think I'm a country girl at heart. I'm not very much one to stand on ceremony. The lack of formality, you know, we need to examine if that's right for the sector as well. We think it is at the moment. You know, I think I'm pretty comfortable with it. We're comfortable with that it sits in the comms strategy. Is it going to be right for superannuation forever? I don't know. And so some people who may shy away from using the tactics of being, you know, natural and unscripted on a LinkedIn post, for example, might be not because of their personality, but because they feel that best reflects, you know, the job that they're doing. So I'd give them space, I suppose, as well, that it's not for everyone. Yeah.
But I think that's a really important point. Anyone listening today, I don't want them to take away the message that 1, I need a whiteboard, 2, I need activewear, and 3, I need to be recording unscripted videos on LinkedIn to be effective.
Yeah.
Because these are all things that are appropriate and relevant to you.
Yeah. And so, to me in this moment.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. So I don't I don't ever want that to be the message that people hear. But what I think is interesting, if we explore it from a different angle, is it is those examples are a manifestation of who you are in a LinkedIn or in an online environment. And so for someone else who's never done that before in their life, who may be in your role or might even be sitting in another industry chair at the moment and thinking, should I do this? The message I'd love them to hear is turning up as yourself as appropriate to your audience.
Yes. Don't
try to dress it up or down. Turn up as yourself.
That's a good message, I think. Yeah. And it is, it's probably the easiest way to turn up.
Isn't it? Requires far less polish.
Really does.
Now, looking back, I'm just interested as we kind of close on the conversation and your own learnings and reflections. If you look back now, what do you think are the main things you would have missed or lost if you hadn't have taken this approach, as I said, around 12 months ago to dive into video?
Well, because it almost accidentally executes part of our strategy to connect with that sub-layer of members, I wonder whether or not I would have found, so many people open to conversations. And what we might have lost from not having that approachability being so obvious is actually how informed the organisation that I run can be. So what I mean by that is that we take a lot of listening from our members. A lot of people say that, but we're on the phones. We're hitting the phones. The team's over there at the moment just trying to run down a particular position. The way we do that is through structured formal groups, but actually by picking up the phone. And that has been a deliberate approach of ASFA over the last sort of 18 months or so. Now, to pick up the phone and have someone be able to have a conversation with you and the team about their honest feelings on might be a position you're taking to government, it might be a position you're taking to media, it could be anything like that. That means they need to trust you. You need to have built rapport with them. They need to feel like they know you. And so what we might have missed is an element of having them feel that way. And so the more we reflect our members, the better the organisation we are. If they talk to us, we reflect them. If they trust us, they'll talk to us. So rapport building by breaking down that sort of formality, that I think is what has been the greatest uplift for us.
There's a really nice thread there, Mary. And I said at the start when introducing you, and obviously it's your strapline, the voice of super. And what was clear through the video approach is that it's also the face of superannuation and your membership. And what I'm hearing through that is it's the ears and the listening side of it too. And so even though from the outside in, how people might interpret your use of the platform is very much being visible and being front and center, the intent there is actually to then gather feedback, to listen and play back to the industry what is important to it and what it is telling you. So I love that there is this circular relationship with LinkedIn, and it's very much not a stand and deliver. It's very much a listen and learn and collaborate as a sector. And so I think, again, that would be one message I'd love people to take away from today.
Yes, it can be a conversation, and that industry associations we're a reflection of the sector, and we strive to be a reflection of the sector. So anytime they're conversing, we want to be a part of it.
And so with that in mind, I'm sure people will want to reach out if they haven't already seen your videos and haven't already chatted or popped up in your comments. What's the best way for people to reach you if they do want to continue this conversation?
I always answer my LinkedIn. And other than that, you can find us all over the internet, hopefully, if we do our jobs properly. But yeah, do reach out on LinkedIn if you want to. I do stay across my messages, and ASFA does as well. So we really do welcome the interaction.
And you can sense that approachability.
Thanks.
So Mary Delahunty, thank you so much for being part of the Your Digital Reputation podcast. And thank you for a very real and relevant conversation.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks again for listening. If you've learned something from today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. For all show notes, head to propelgroup.com.au. Thanks again for listening.